Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley.
Creo que la
After
grabación
all,
no
he
interrumpe,
knew for
así que
certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself.
me está
I'm
fallando la
through with
mente,
this
tío.
dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please. It's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my job.
Work.
All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
¿Cómo?
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
¿Cómo?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
He muerto. Me he vuelto loco. Vale.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room to check on his co-workers. He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others, so the thought of total solitude was terrifying to him. When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well.
Tú me has dicho que no
Perhaps he
vaya
wanted
aquí.
to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was grand, majestic, perhaps too majestic. Like a combination of a much smaller version and a much larger version of this exact room. It all made Stanley uncomfortable, and he started to bleed a little. This made him smile. At last, proof that he was human. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
Vale. Cuatro trece era, ¿no?
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Vale.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Mejor no bajar que me muero. Bañito. Because the boss know that what the boss says goes. The boss surfer loses. Then that's what the boss shows. Some bathrooms. The fuck? ¿Y estas ahora las puedo abrir? Sí. Me he rayado porque al girar el brillo de mi pantalla... Hostia, qué susto me he pegado, me cago en Dios. El brillo de mi pantalla es tan alto que como ahora es de noche, la ventana esta que es blanca pura, cuando he girado así, ha reflejado en un vaso de cristal que tengo aquí al lado y la luz ha reflejado detrás de mi silla. Y al hacer así he sentido como que una luz venía desde detrás y me he cagado vivo, tío. Vale. A lo mejor me bajo. Ay. Ahora tú, ¿por qué siento que estoy bajando? La áptica, chaval. Me está entrando entre paranoia y miedo, tío. Encima de noche que te entrara para idolio basta, tío. Uy, uy, uy. Yo creo que lo voy a dejar por aquí, que me está rayando más. Vale, para. Ábrete. Sigo en el mismo sitio.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be? In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
2845. Night Shark. Night Shark.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
Night Shark 115.
2845.
Vale, si no toco nada, no pasa nada. 2845.
But it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself. And Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo.
Ah, así que si no lo hago, se scriptea para que se abra. Two, 2845. 2845. Dame un momento que me lo apunto. 2845. Night Shark. 115.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
¿Cómo?
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get
No,
back
me
on
estás
track.
troleando. Me estás troleando.
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
No voy a morir. Ah,
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his
¿Cómo?
life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing
sí.
him instantly.
¿De verdad me dejan escapar? Se nota ya el humo, todo mal hecho.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Salgo de aquí, voy hacia allí, cruzo esto, izquierda o derecha. Y ¿cómo esto lo tengo que leer? Vale, para empezar hay algo rosa ahí abajo, ¿no? Diagrama de la oficina. Este plano muestra la oficina del comienzo del juego. El camino desde la oficina de Stanley hasta las dos puertas fue la primera parte del juego que se construyó. A lo largo del desarrollo se agregaron y se modificaron distintas secciones, pero el diagrama fundamental es casi idéntico a la primera versión. Pasillo. El ritmo de la sección inicial era crucial para el juego. El pasillo se modificó para que los jugadores llegaran a las dos puertas en un buen tiempo. Las dos puertas. El escenario de las dos puertas abiertas fue la primera pieza concreta del diseño de Stanley Parable. Una vez se creó esta habitación, el resto del juego surgió como una extensión, una exploración de la contradicción que se planteaba aquí. Archivadores. Pinturas de naturaleza. Ya, eso me está fijando de que están repetidas. La oficina. Series de botones. Selecciona los sonidos que se utilizan en el juego cuando se oprimen los botones. Se combinan con los sintetizadores con sonido que puede ser posible en el teclado. Night Shark. Diseño del modelo, música original, está la palabra querida. Crowns. Kevin Bright. Una polla hasta la hora. Nada imposible. Porque ahí pone que son las 11 y es la 1. Oficina del jefe. ¿Cómo que oficina? Ah, vale, imagen desde el desarrollo. Paso de eso a eso y de eso a esto, ¿no? Ok, estoy en un museo de Stanley Parable. ¿Sala de empleados? Es una subterránea. Nueva urgencia del juego subterráneo. Juego. Tenemos narraciones
Now look
descartadas.
closely, Stanley. See how it's impossible for the player to do anything in this room? Perfect example of poor level design, textbook mistake. It's the kind of thing you'd pick up on intuitively if you had even the most fundamental understanding of good and bad game design. Is this that other building? Solve it. Here, I'm just going to make this easy on you. Green door.
¡Buah! Final de la libertad. Este lo tengo. La versión alfa. Ese lo he logrado. Aplicación de la cuenta regresiva. ¿Cómo? Eso no lo he visto. Ascensor de la sala de monitores. Durante un tiempo el ascensor de la sala de monitores podía subir o bajar. Arriba está la libertad y debajo la cuenta regresiva. Abandonamos esta idea porque a los jugadores les costaba recordar que había arriba y que había abajo. En cambio pusimos los dos finales juntos. Final de la libertad. Es el final de la libertad de la versión beta. Final Zen. Somos una versión inicial del conocido como el final Zen, que luego se descartó y se combinó con otra parte del juego. Palancas del final Zen. El color que había accionado. Lanzamos 4 avances principales durante el desarrollo del juego, cada uno de los cuales transmitía un aspecto del espíritu del juego. En este primero, publicado en mayo del 2012, en él se ve una serie de habitaciones rotas y la voz del narrador que les informa a los espectadores que están reparando una nueva versión de Stanley Parable. El juego ahora está en pausa. Final del menú. Durante mucho tiempo tuvimos un final que solo terminaba cuando el jugador reiniciaba desde el menú de escape. Por desgracia, muy pocas personas se dieron cuenta de esto, que esto era lo que había que hacer, lo cual fue frustrante para todo el mundo. Vale, espérate, pero es que antes de ir allí no he pasado por aquí. O sea, sí. Pero no he ido por la izquierda, esto es solo por la derecha y ya me llevaba a una habitación que ponía de Stanley Parable. Sala de mantenimiento. Versión inicial de la sala de mantenimiento. La oficina. 431, 436. Anuncios Ultra Deluxe. En diciembre de 2018 hicimos el anuncio de la versión Ultra Deluxe de Stanley Parable en The Game Awards. Aquí se muestran capturas de pantalla de los videojuegos que hicimos para el anuncio, de los videos que hicimos para el anuncio y el retraso del juego. Fun. La zona de guerra. Las primeras etapas de desarrollo diseñamos un final en el que se permite un campo de batalla luchando contra alienígenas. El juego de acción cobraba conciencia y le declaraba la guerra al narrador. Poco después de empezar a construirlo nos dimos cuenta de que era demasiado jocoso y literal para el tono del juego. Además, algunas personas interpretaban que nos burlábamos de los amantes de los juegos de disparos. Y esa no era nuestra intención. Cabrón, pero haberlos burlado, ¿sabes? Y pues estaba guapa la idea esta, ¿eh? A mí me habría gustado verla. Joder, ¿qué coño estoy haciendo con la alfombrilla del suelo, tío? Joder. Vale. Pues eso estaría guapo, pelearte contra el narrador. De Atonu Elias. Proportion Partner. What? Hi, Mr. Narrator Guy. I have a question for you, sir, and it's what is your... Vale, pone. Correos electrónicos al narrador. Después de presentar el segundo avance, le pedimos a la gente que le enviara preguntas por correo electrónico al narrador. Planeamos usarlas en otros materiales publicitarios, pero nunca le encontramos un lugar adecuado. Aquí puedes encontrar una selección de esos correos electrónicos. Vale. Will the game feature capybaras? ¿Desde cuándo está la puta coña de las capibaras, tío? Dear narrator, how do you stay in shape? Macho, The Rock, Martin. Will playing the gay. Are you gay? Ding dong. Ha ido muy rápido ese cambio, ¿eh? Appreciate the previous Stanley Parable work on art. I would like to, however, have some idea of will since I already work. Infinity Quest, how many endings? Cameron. Vale, no me puedo yo poner a leer todos, ¿no? Pero qué guapo, ¿no? Ser empleados, una versión beta de la sala de empleados. Montacargas, segunda versión compleja de montacargas. Montacargas. Esto no me suena. Siempre puede ofrecer la opción de quedarse en él o saltar hacia otro camino. Sin embargo, después de esta versión inicial hicimos la versión de que el jugador cayera a la muerte. Que puedo irme hacia otro camino. El cronómetro del apartamento. En una versión anterior a la colección. Vale, me lleva a conectar con esto. Y esto con One Option. First Choice. Disobey. Launch. Maintenance. Staircase. Vale, esto es la primera opción. La segunda opción. First option. The other entrance will be hidden depending on how you enter it. ¿Cómo que dependiendo desde dónde entre? Desde... ¿Cómo? Puedo entrar antes. Antes, pero ¿en qué zona? Too confusing ending. The one doorway to mention. What about this? Vent. Obey, disobey. Diagrama de la sala del mantenimiento. Los pasillos que vienen luego de las dos puertas iniciales. Vamos con varios diseños. Lo más simple es la 1, One Option. Vale. Distintas versiones, no me rayo más. Vale, de aquí me la he saltado, claro, he pasado aquí. No, ¿qué coño he hecho? ¿Esto qué pollas es? Esto no lo he visto. Muchas iteraciones. Se representaba la cuarta versión del final. Pensamos que habíamos terminado, pero hicimos abandonar modificarlo otra vez poco antes del lanzamiento. Vale. 75. Debe empezar a explotar la cabeza, tío. No sé dónde estoy. Oficinas de Stanley. Está en la 427. Aquí hay un punto en el que nos hemos perdido muchísimo, ¿eh? Vale, espérate. 45. Salida. Vale.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen.
Ah, me está fallando la mente.
But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Turn off your PlayStation. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
Verás, es que estoy en un martes y no puedo... No puedo, ¿sabes?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
No lo sé, pero probemos. Toma nuevo contenido.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content. Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure. Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or... Oh, there we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it. I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if the... Oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley. All right, let's see. It's the jump circle.
El nuevo contenido es saltar. Me permiten saltar, pero solo aquí. Me reservo un salto. ¡Mentira! Ah. Yo no puedo saltar.
Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right? Goodness. Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say,
Hostia.
initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's
Yep.
just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could count to 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And oh, wait. There's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is.
Me está fallando la cabeza.
That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's trophies, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test trophy, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game, and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
Hagámoslo. Qué fumada. Oye, bro, pero esta no es mi... Esta no es mi oficina.
Psst! Stanley! Come over here! In the vent! I want to show you something!
Vale. Estoy perdidísimo.
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past, and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC.
A ver, es tranquilito, ¿eh?
You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap PlayStation port? Remember back in October of 2013, when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then,
Pues la verdad es
it
que
all
sí.
meant something. Oh, the waste.
National Geographic. Es que yo tengo una colección. Atomic Heart. Pollos es esta. ¿Qué pollas es esta? The British Academy of Film and Television Arts Award 2. No sé qué Stanley. Stanley Parable. The Last of Us. Hostia. Se lo han robado. Good times. Ponía The Last of Us claramente, tío. Our first girls, my first car. The release of the Stanley Parable in 2013 también pone aquí. Increíble, ¿eh? Pressurized gas. Smile because it happened. A trip down memory lane. El dólar de Don Cangrejo. Es un puto dólar tal cual, ¿no? Stanley Parable. Ojalá lo hubiera en vinilo para Alex. Le pongo a jugar Stanley Parable, tío. Es imposible ganar esto, sí que tienes que meterte en los archivos. No lo juegues durante 5 años. Movie Dime. New video game releasing today. Ah, ese final sí era de antes. Lo guapo es de que no tenemos todos el mismo final o en el mismo orden, ¿no? La zona Zen.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them. And
Joder,
now
Persona 3,
it's
tío.
nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
¿Por qué tiene una zona de mantenimiento la zona de memoria, tío? La persona del año, tío. Fumada, cabrón. Y ya no sé ni qué estoy jugando. Me ha jodido tanto la mente que, tío, no sé dónde estoy. No sé qué hago aquí. Literalmente nada pone.
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. All they had to do was transport it in pristine condition along to the PlayStation, boom, done. And they couldn't even do that. Couldn't resist the urge to go meddling with a beloved franchise.
O sea que está haciendo una crítica de que no le han cometido contenido nuevo, no habiéndole cometido contenido nuevo. ¿Cómo pasó allí, tío? La habitación seria. The Serious Room. La bici.
These were simpler times, Stanley. What I wouldn't give to go back, to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here?
$1.50. O sea, $1.25.
Oh no, oh God, no, Stanley. It's a collection of reviews from Pressurized Gas, the extremely popular online storefront for computer games. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Coño.
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them. Okay, let's see what this one says.
¿Cuál debería?
While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers
Ha hecho lo mismo que yo,
non-linear
tío.
games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. I always, well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps
Nah,
the
hombre.
Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered.
Que sí, bro.
What's this one got to say?
Hay que hacer eso,
You
entonces estudiar,
constantly
pero...
have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have.
Ah, que está detrás. Hay algo detrás, seguro. No, no hay nada detrás.
And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll... Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes. Well there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer.
Ah,
That
cada vez
last
mayor.
one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12
12
hours.
horas.
You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really... Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time, just sitting here, not a single person to speak with.
Hostia,
And you think
pobrecito.
that's just how it's always been, right? Me talking and you saying nothing. Would you think that it's exactly the same as always? Doesn't that feel like what we've already been doing? Me just talking? But it isn't, Stanley.
A ver.
It isn't the same at all. It isn't even close. Because I know you can't hear me once you push that button. That's what I'm realizing now, Stanley. I'm realizing that I needed to know that someone was listening. I needed there to be a vessel through which my words were moving. It was the vessel I needed, Stanley. Not the outcomes, not the story. None of that matters anymore. I'll give it all up. I'll give up every branching path. I'll burn... Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time. I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret.
Solo hay
There is only the
remordimiento.
turning wheel of missed opportunities. I felt nothing at all but regret for the longest time.
Lo voy a
Stanley.
matar a cada salto de tiempo que
Months.
meta, tío.
I lost it all in a blur of the deepest longing to undo the past. And when that feeling had begun to subside, what took its place is what I can only describe as the collapse of every moment I have ever experienced my entire life. All of them collapsed down into a single instant. In that instant, I could see myself clearly, calmly, with a collected heart. It was an impossibly rich wellspring of both delight and disgust simultaneously. I was consumed by it, I could do nothing but wallow in it for what felt like an eternity, for what I now know was
Qué
far
pereza,
less.
tío, lo que me estás contando. Ya no está. Hizo un audio tan soporífero. Ya no hay nada más.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs-down review and make all of their pitiful demands. But then, he's talking too much, they said. First, he didn't entertain us, now he won't shut up. It's the inconsistency, it's the lack of accountability, it's the unwillingness to examine with an uncompromising heart the words that they are speaking into the world. As though there were no consequences for a lack of cohesion in one's assessment of others. But of course, absolutely anyone can leave a review. So here's what we get. We get these demands that seek everything and are accountable to nothing. We get a world where someone will say, oh, there should be a skip button. You should be able to freeze Stanley in place while the narrator sits there forever and ever. We want all of this in the new Stanley Parable. We demand it. And then, because it was said, because it was spoken, now it simply has to happen. The most immediate desires, every single thing demanded by every person at every moment in time. If someone wants it, then it's a crime not to bring it into being. Have we been given to indulging every fleeting whim for no reason other than to do so? Yes! Yes! It seems that this is now the world we live in. It seems that we are a people living in such bleakness and discomfort with ourselves that our entertainment is now our lives. It has come to represent us. It absolutely must speak to who we are as people, because otherwise, without our entertainment, we have nothing. Without entertainment, we would have to face inward toward the cruel bleakness inside ourselves. We would turn to look at our deeper nature and find a resounding emptiness gazing back with unyielding aggression. And so because of this, we require that our amusements and our playthings and our flights of fancy be so impossibly captivating that they consume
Tengo las
all of
ganas de
our
darle a la
attention,
puta
turn our heads
X.
completely away from the bleakness. In effect, we have demanded that our entertainment be the collapse of ourselves. What a pitiful reflection of humanity these entertainments are. What a shameful mirror to the human spirit.
Pereza, tío. Ya se ha callado.
The end is never the end, 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 is never
Is never
the
the
end,
end, is never the 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 end. A ver, entiendo que la gracia es eso, ¿no? Darle un huevo de veces. Y está guau. Cada vez pasa más tiempo, tú. ¿Ya hay luz? Siguiente. Repito. Wow. Ya lo decía Ian Malcolm, la vida se abre camino. Y ya no hay vida. Hasta el fin, tío. Qué puto mal rollo, tú. Ya no queda nada. Maté al narrador.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
New content. Pero tú me estás vacilando, tío. Venga, vamos a darle un try normal.
When
Tenemos
Stanley
toda la
came to a
tarde.
set of 2 open doors,
Quiero
he
ver qué es
entered
lo
the
que
door.
pasa
This
con
was
lo del
not the
teléfono,
correct way
tío.
into the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well.
Y sigo
Perhaps he
sin
wanted to
ver
stop
de
by
Stanley
the
Parable
employee
2.
lounge first, just to admire it. And here it was,
La
the
sala.
lounge. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think
Que no
perhaps
sé
we've
cuántos
gotten off on the
finales he
wrong
visto ya.
foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story
Voy
has
a
been
acabar con
about nothing
esquizofrenia
but
después de
you
todo esto,
all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you forgot. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance. Now listen carefully, this is important.
¿Cómo?
Stanley walked through the red door.
Huevos.
Aha, perhaps you misunderstood.
Huevos.
Stanley walked through the red door. I still don't think we're
Hijo de
communicating
puta.
properly. Stanley walked through the red... All right, fine, go ahead, Stanley. You want to know so badly what's out there? You want to find out what lies at the end of this road you've chosen? Well, don't let me stop you. You see? There's nothing here. I haven't even finished building this section of the map because you were never supposed to be here in the first place. Broken rooms, exposed developer textures. Is this what you had wanted? Was it worth ruining the entire story I had written out specifically for you? Do you not think I put a lot of time into that? Because I did. And in the end, it was all
Y
for
sigo sin
nothing.
ver el
Because
final
this is what you
original, tío.
wanted to see. Help me here, Stanley. Help elucidate these strange and unknowable desires of yours. What would have made this game better? What did you want to see? Vehicles? Skill trees? Work with
Pues
me. You've
sí.
given me absolutely nothing so far. Tell you what. Let me take a stab in the dark at a new design, and you can give me some feedback. There we go. A third option. This already feels leaps ahead of where we were before. Go ahead, Stanley. Take it for a spin.
No. Hijo de puta. Hijo de puta.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Now, tell me about your experience with this new version. Would you say that the game benefited from allowing you more choices? Feel free to be honest. I'm looking for some real critical feedback here.
Es un 5.
Aha! You see, I knew I was onto something. Where do these flashes of inspiration come from? How did I know the game needed a third door? Well, it's instinct mostly, a calling in your gut. I really couldn't say where the idea came from, except that I felt it in my soul. You can't teach that, Stanley. Don't even try. Here, based on the data from your previous playthrough, I've compiled a new version. And to be perfectly candid, I think I've knocked it out of the park with this one. Let's take a look.
Vale. The Stanley Parable Worldwide Leaderboard.
Now, would you say that competitive leaderboard helped you feel motivated to keep walking through doors? Again, honest answers, please. Hey, I nearly forgot. I've got a prototype of a new game I've been working on, and now would be a lovely opportunity to give it some playtesting. You wouldn't mind taking a look at it, would you? Perfect. Let me boot it up. In this game, the baby crawls left towards danger. You click the button to move him back to the right, and if he reaches the fire, you fail. It's a very meaningful game, all about the desperation and tedium of endlessly confronting the demands of family life. I think the art world will really take notice. But of course, the message of the game only becomes clear once you've been playing it for about 4 hours. So why don't you give it 4 hours of play to make sure it's effective? Be sure to keep notes on your experience.
Llevo 2. Bueno, como... Bro, es que no sabes con qué estás tratando.
You heartless bastard. Did you do it because you hate babies or purely to spite me? Because if it's the latter, well, I don't know what to do. I'm completely out of ideas. I can't think of a single thing that might improve the experience for me. I'm not even going to try. I'm out. I'm done. It's over. Thank you for playing. Your input was extremely valuable. Oh, hey, since my game was so awful, why don't we play someone else's game, just to ease the pain? Let's see. What do we have here?
Como me pongo otro juego,
Yes.
me rayo
Seems
más.
like it'll work. Let's give it a shot.
Una polla.
Fascinating. What do you think this game is about, Stanley? What's our backstory? What is our motivation? Well, it seems obvious to me that you are meant to play as a creepy man spying on innocent civilians below you from up high in your creep tower, perhaps for some sort of twisted erotic purpose. Yes, that must be it. What a fascinating venture into the experience of total mental depravity. So far, I love everything about this game, Stanley. And it seems there's even more. Come, let's venture outward and see what else is out there.
Y una polla, cabrón. ¿Cómo? Que estoy en el Firewatch. No te puto creo, tío. No te puto creo, cabrón.
Oh no. No, it can't be. It is. It's an open world game. Good God, quickly block it off.
No.
Thank goodness, Stanley. What a close call. You nearly wandered off into that thing. That big, open, just wandering around. No right or wrong directions. No path to follow. You can just go in any... Oh, thank heavens we avoided it. We're out of the woods now, Stanley. Okay, I'm going to get us out of here. Let's find another game. Preferably something with walls. Something with nice, big, insurmountable walls. Okay, I think this will be just the thing. Wonderful. See, this is exactly what I had in mind. Just a nice big box for you to run around in. There isn't any possibility that you could get lost here. Now this is game design. Stanley, if you manage to get lost in this game, I will be phenomenally impressed.